Okay, hello again, my dear STEM students. I am here to talk about lesson 4, which is all about hyperbolas. Again, my name is Miss Anthor C. Cabalda. Alright. So, pasensya na sa background noise. These are the things that we cannot control. So, just bear with me. Okay, so before we begin, let us first know our objectives. So we have the following objectives for this lesson. You have to define a hyperbola, know its basic parts, familiarize the equation, both centered at hk and at 0, 0, how to graph a hyperbola with center at 0, 0 and hk, and lastly, to solve problems involving hyperbolas. Okay, so we have a real-life example of a hyperbola. This is a nuclear power plant which was found in Morong, Bataan, Philippines. So actually, in the Philippines, we have a nuclear power plant, but this was closed because of some major reasons, and I think this is very, very risky. But my point here is that all math concepts, most math concepts are really related to our real life situation. So you have to appreciate math, right? So if dili pa na ninyo makuha karon, then that's fine because loving something involves process. Char. Pa-char ni ma'am. Okay, so let's start with our first objective, and that is to define a hyperbola. So as you can see here, we have a hyperbola is the set of all points in a plane whose distances from two fixed points in the plane have a constant difference. Okay, so let's take note of the terms used here. So we have, again, it's a set of all points whose distances from two fixed points have a constant difference. Alright, so the fixed points are what you call as the foci. The line through the foci is called the focal axis, and we also have the point which is found midway. Nasa tunga or kaninga point ang midpoint sa ato ang focal axis o sa ato ang foci. So ginatawag siya center, and we also have the intersection of the focal axis and the hyperbola. So asa mag-meet, magtagbo, mag-touch ang hyperbola o ang focal axis. So meaning to say, vertices were already formed. So how is this different from an ellipse? Of course, basically, an ellipse is all about having a constant sum, diba? So muna siya ang basic difference niya. And then the other one is the form, and the other one are the basic parts. Okay, so later let us know more about hyperbola. Okay, so we have here a sample worksheet which is all about identifying parts of the hyperbola. So I will be giving you at least a minute to answer the graph on your own. You have to label the parts on your own. Okay, 1 minute starts now. And you can just use your hands to point like where is the coordinate of the center, where are the two vertices. At least you already have an idea on the placement of these parts, right? Okay, I have 30 seconds. 30 seconds left on my clock. Okay, 15 seconds. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let us try to know if your answers were already correct and if there are some answers of yours that needs to be corrected. Okay. Ay, sayop day ko aning part. Mao din siya. Okay, so you must self-evaluate yourself. You must self-evaluate or you must self-check. Okay, let's start off with the center. So the center is labeled as 0, 0. Moingon ganito coordinates. Coordinates meaning to say you have your x and your y. Okay, mo nang pasabot sa coordinates. Pair your x value and your y value. Next, you have your vertex. Diba? Duha ka vertex ang hyperbola. You have your vertex A or vertex 1 and your vertex 2. Vertices ang plural. 4. Okay, nga nung A man na siya ma'am because of this distance na naka-label. Okay. So, ang distance pa dong center pa dong din is A. Center pa dong dito is negative A gihapon. But, for purposes of the placement, sa nga part, diba negative naman eh. Pero yung distance is still positive. Ang pag-label lang sa coordinates. Okay? Dili mag-label. It's just the labeling. But the distance is still positive. Still A. Next, we also have our focus. Okay. Since the parabola, the ellipse, and the hyperbola have common term na sila'y focus. Okay, so ang focus it's found inside the hyperbola, inside the parabola, inside the ellipse. Okay, so mao na siya. So ang iya pong coordinates is negative C0 and C0. Okay, so meaning to say, ang in distance from the center padong ni focus 1 is C. And we also have our transverse axis. So, kani siya nga line. Kana. Basically, our x-axis. And we also have our conjugate axis. So, kani siya nga line. Hindi kaya maklaro ang green, but kana siya nga line. Muna to ang conjugate axis. And we also have our auxiliary rectangle. This one, the rectangle, the broken, a rectangle with broken lines. Okay. And we also have our asymptotes. Right? Of course, in some books, there will also be directrix. So, ang directrix, na-put siya somewhere here. Na part. Okay. But at some point, the directrix is aligned, correct? Same na gihapon na siya. So this is just an add-on. So mana siya ang directrix rin na part. So same distance sila from the center to the directrix and center to the focus. Application sa atuang parabola. So please do not forget. But the basic parts are just your center, vertex, focus, transverse axis, conjugate axis, auxiliary rectangle, and the asymptote. Pakapin ang directrix because in some books it was also discussed. Okay? And lastly, we have, I almost forgot, the ninth part. We have the latus rectum. Okay? So, duha ka buok ang atong latus rectum because we have two hyperbolas. Okay, this determines the length of the opening. How wide must your hyperbola be? Right? So, dapat equal siya. Okay? So, I hope this is already clear on the parabola part. Okay, next. So, how did you locate the foci in the given graph of the hyperbola? Giunsa daw nato pagpangita kung nasakto ba kaha ang foci. Okay? So, each focus is C units away. C units away from the center. Okay? Always yun na nga ang letter nga atong gi-associate kay focus is C. Okay? Do not forget, focus is C. So, we have f sub 1 is negative C0 and f sub 2 is C0. Of course, if the center is at 0, 0. But if the center is at HK, then the y value is changed. So, be careful. Okay. Next, for any point on the hyperbola, the absolute value of the difference of its distances from the foci is 2a. Okay. So, careful pagdaan ni ng mga terms. Next, how did you locate the vertices? So, si vertex pod is A units away from the center. Focus is C, and vertex is A. Alright? So, we have negative A0 and A0. Alright, so vertices. So we have A and the center. And the other one is the positive side, right? The vertices are points on the hyperbola collinear with center and foci. So, si vertex ko no, same ra og line. Collinear. Mo siyang pasabot. Co meaning the same line with the center and the foci. So, nanakay clue, ini-graph ni mo. So, si vertex ko no, ka-line nilang foci o ni center. So, dili pwede nga naa sa ibabaw. Dili siya pwedeng nasa ubos. But it has to be collinear. Okay? Nagbuyon ra sila. Okay? Next, what is the length of the transverse axis? So, we have the segment V sub 1 and V sub 2 is called the transverse axis. Kung unsang imong vertex, mao nang imong transverse axis. Kung asa di ay ang imong vertex, naa dito ang imong transverse axis. Usually, this is, it depends kung unsay equation. Okay? So, but its length is still 2a. Okay? Transverse axis. Nganong A because of this clue. Vertex. Okay? 2a siya. Gamit ni siya. Clue. What is the length of the conjugate axis? The conjugate axis, this is the segment which is perpendicular to the transverse axis passing through the center. Again, nanapot tayo word nga perpendicular. So, always yun na, ini pass through niya sa transverse axis, maka-form gid siya right angle. So, moagi gyapon siya sa center. So, the length is 2b. Okay? 2b. Ang transverse axis, ang iyang length is 2a. Ang conjugate axis, ang iyang length is 2b. Familiarize. Absorbed. Breathe in, breathe out. Alright, so let's go to the next part. How do we form the auxiliary rectangle? Auxiliary meaning helping rectangle. This rectangle has sides 2A and 2B because this is your transverse axis and this is your conjugate axis, with its diagonals intersecting at the center. Okay? So, rectangle siya. Two sides are congruent and parallel to the axis, transverse axis, which contains your V1 and V2, or V sub 1 and V sub 2 vertices. And the other two sides are congruent and parallel to the conjugate axis. Okay. Next, what is the use of the auxiliary rectangle in graphing a hyperbola in the rectangular coordinate system? So, may gamit aning auxiliary rectangle, ma'am? This helps us sketch the asymptotes correctly and precisely. Next, since the asymptotes, we have line 1 and line 2. Again, take note, asymptotes are lines. So, nalapod tayo arrowheads. Okay, so ang mga arrowheads sa atong hyperbola are na ay arrowheads, the hyperbola itself. So, ang isikatumoy anay mo hyperbola dapat na ay arrowheads. You also have the asymptotes. You also have the, sa paman, if need gipangita ang directrix, appeal na siya. Okay, ang latus rectum, ang walay arrowhead because it's just a line segment. Okay, so the asymptotes are the extended diagonals of the auxiliary rectangle. Extended diagonals. Okay, so ang diagonal, nasa slant side, nasa center sa rectangle. Maagi sa center sa rectangle. Okay, what is the use of the asymptotes in graphing the hyperbola? Unsa ang point gamit ko no? So we have here asymptotes. Y equals b over ax, and we also have y equals negative b over ax. Alright, so we have the asymptotes of the hyperbola are two lines passing through the center, which serves as a guide in graphing your hyperbola. Moingon kanitag hyperbola, if you could still remember in your general mathematics, asymptotes are lines that will get closer and closer and closer to your conic section. Like in a hyperbola, it will get closer and closer and closer, but it will never meet, or it will never touch, it will never intersect the hyperbola. No? Murag kamo na unta pero wa madayon. Something like that. So, like it's more like a friend zone. Like, yara gid mo ko very very close kay mo pero di ka mo. Ouch, ma'am. Naigo ko. Ow. Sorry naman. Alright, to find the asymptotes in the standard equation, replace 1 with 0. So, mao ni siya ang atong equation sa ato ang hyperbola. So, replace ko no 1 with 0. And you have to solve this part to become this part. Okay, so ako na lang ihatag sa inyo ha mga students. No? Okay, so how do we locate the latus rectum? The latus rectum is the line segment passing through the focus and parallel to the directrix. See, naaday directrix. So, ang line segment nga moagi, always kini moagi si LR sa ato ang focus. Nya parallel siya sa ato ang directrix. So, kung parallel gani, atbang yun na siya. Okay, atbang yun na siya, always ang parallel. Parallel lines are lines that do not meet. Okay, so murag ikaw og imong crush, parallel jud mo permanente. Okay, wa pa mo nag-meet. Okay, nara sa yung dreams, but parallel gyapon. Alright, so we have the equation is 2b squared over a. Again, the equation of the latus rectum is 2b squared over a. Why is it important to understand the process of graphing a hyperbola? Ngano man, kinahanglan man nato makahibaw ang proseso, no? To graph a hyperbola. Well, it is important because in the graphing part, you already have the idea on the location of the given numbers in the problem. So, if nakalocate na ka and then kaibaw na ka sa mga terms and their definition, then you already have the clue. Then the clue will help you answer the problem. Same is true with policemen solving cases. Different kinds of cases. Diba naman dyan yung mga clue sa crime scene. Ina dyan ang tanawon ang like, for example, na knife dito, ilang tanawon ang mga fingerprints, like tanawon nilang CCTV, tanawon nilang placement sa body, like everything is interconnected. Sana all connected. Charot. Bitaw, if you know the basic parts and you know the proper placement, kay bawa ka saan pag-graph, then gamay na lang jud kuwang makasolve na ka sa problem. Konting analysis lang and comprehension lang. Right? Inana na jud siya ang mathematics. Lisod gamay pero dili imposible. Okay. Now let's start with the equation. Okay, the equation of the hyperbola centered at the origin. As you can see on the left side of the presentation, we have a diagram that shows a hyperbola with a rectangle centered at the origin. So, kanang rectangle din ha is what you call as the auxiliary rectangle. A sub 1 and A sub 2. We have B sub 1 and B sub 2. Right? So, kana si A, mo na imuhang transverse axis. Si B, mo na ang imuhang conjugate axis. Usually, si transverse axis mas taas compared ni conjugate axis. Usually. Okay. So, sa may mga terms din here. As x increases, the hyperbola comes closer to these lines. Right? And these lines are called the asymptotes. Dinhang dapita. Naani siya mga arrowheads. Right? Naani siya mga arrowheads. Okay. So, muna pong pasabot na sila mga arrowheads because these are lines. So, you have to be very, very careful in your drawing. Okay? Because this extends infinitely. Again, the length of your conjugate axis is 2b and the length of your transverse axis is 2a. Alright, and for your Pythagorean theorem or Pythagorean theorem, most of ng iyahang equation. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Sa ellipse, this is minus. Pero sa hyperbola, this is plus. Okay? So, take note of this. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Nanong importante man because, say for example, papangitaon ka sa focus, then you already have your vertex and the other point. Right? So, sa'yo na lang pagpangita. Okay? Daghan na gid kayong blessings di panghatag. All you have to do is to open your heart, open your mind, and start appreciating and loving mathematics. Alright, so we have here our equation. So, if A ang ato ang vertex, of course, mananggiinon ha, vertex is the intersection. Mag-meet ang atong hyperbola o ato ang kani area atong one part of the rectangle natay vertex. So, vertex na siya din hang nakita. Alright, again, this has arrowheads. The equation of hyperbola with center at 0, 0 and foci is on the x-axis. Klaro man kayo, no? X-axis naamo siya din. Kung y-axis, napo siya dito. Okay. Always yun nasa sulod si focus. Sulod sa ato ang conic section. In this part, na siya sa sulod ni hyperbola. Dili siya magawas. Okay. So we have our formula, x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1. Okay. Obvious kaayo no nga centered at 0, 0 because we already have x squared here. X squared and y squared. Okay, this is centered at 0, 0. So y correct. The length of the transverse axis is 2a and the conjugate axis is 2b. Magamit nito nato to determine kung pila si A o pila si B. Alright? So we have the following how should I call this one? The coordinates of the foci and the slopes of the asymptote. Slopes, meaning how steep is your line. Right? So you have B over A and you also have negative B over A. Ma'am, anong para-pareho naman na sila, ma'am? Yes, para-pareho rin na sila nga slope because as you can see, same naman po sila og giagian, no? But ato lang anis na siya negative because of the second line. This is going downwards kani nga graph kani siya, and kani po siya going upward from left to right. Okay, from left to right, this is positive kani siya, kani nga green nga arrowheads mo na siya, imong slope is b over a, and kani po from left to right is magikan sa top pod nga left nga padung sa right, this is negative. So ang slope nimo is negative. Decreasing kani increasing. Okay? So akong concept nga mahatag ana is katong y equals mx plus b. Right? So ang slope kato ganing rise over run. Okay? Say for example, you have y equals 1 over 2x plus 1. So you have your b or your intercept. Y-intercept is 1. So meaning to say 0 to 1. So from 1, mo count kag 1 unit pa taas, 2 units pa right. Kay positive man sila. And then din kay line. Okay? 1, 1, 2. So dire. Somewhere here. Okay, line, then hindi tita. Okay. Sample na niya. Sample na siya. Okay. Alright, so I'll try to erase this one. Okay, ako lang yun for purposes of explanation. Alright, so I hope everything is clear about this one. Next, the equations of the asymptotes. We have y equals b over ax, and we also have y equals negative b over ax. Okay, so if ang center sa atong origin is at 0, 0, ang atong foci kay nasa x-axis, meaning to say opening left and opening right. So meaning to say ang atong equation sa atong asymptotes mag-una si b compared ni a, b over a. Okay, clue na siya. Next, we also have, how about if atong center is still at the center, 0, 0, atong center is at 0, 0, and atong foci is on the y-axis. So, meaning to say, mausap na po ang placement. Okay? So, kung asa si focus, adto po si vertex. Mag-uban yun na si vertex o si focus. Kung asa siya nga line dapit pa. Of course, ang atbang ana, that will be your B. And that will be, B is always your conjugate axis. So, of course, tanawa ang movement. 0 padung ni C because focus is C units away from the center and vertex is A units away from the center. This is your center of the hyperbola. Okay? So, ang iyang movement nasa Y. So, muna, ang imong changes nasa C. Okay? Ang imong change nasa A. Dili mo patakag label. Okay? Of course, sa imong conjugate axis, B0 siya because tanawa ang movement from the center. Naamo siya sa x-axis. So, meaning, ang ni-move ra nga point is the x part. Okay? Muna, ang mausab kani. Stay put lang si 0 because wala may movement din ha. Okay? Be careful with your plots, my dear students. Alright. So, we have here, of course, kaya naman siya sa y-axis. So, mag-una na po ang ato ang equation nga y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared. So the length of the transverse axis is still 2a, no matter where the placement is. No? Kung pa vertical or horizontal siya, always good na nga, ang transverse axis is 2a. And it's always longer than our conjugate axis. Okay, so mga labels lang na siya. And our asymptotes, diba kung gayon ka ganina, mabaliktad na po siya. That's a over bx. Positive and negative a over bx. Kung nasa y-axis. Pero kung nasa x-axis, that's b over a. Okay? Anong duha man, ma'am? Because, of course, ma'am, yun na siya duha ka asymptotes. Increasing ang usa, decreasing ang usa mo ng positive o negative. Okay? Alright, so let's have our examples. So state the coordinates of the vertices, foci, length of the transverse and conjugate axis, equations of the asymptotes. So we have here x squared over 4 minus y squared over 16 equals 1. So, ang atong clue ani is, if mag-una si x, no, compared sa subtraction, right? Kung positive si x part, usually kung nasa sa una, so, ang ato ang orientation ana, ang picture na atong drawing ana is opening left and right. Okay? Kung kinsay positive nila, unya nag-una siya sa ato ang equation, so meaning to say, ngadto ang opening sa ato ang hyperbola. Since nag-una ang x, unya positive pagyud siya, x squared over 4, so meaning to say, ang atong opening ani is right and left. Mo na siya clue. Okay, so from the given equation, our a is 2 and our b is 4. Alright, the length of the transverse axis is 4. Substitute lang ang 2 times 2, which is 4. And our conjugate axis is 2b, which is 8. Okay, that is 2 times 4. That is 8. Again, let me just add something. Not all cases kay kanang taas perminti ang transverse axis. Usually, it depends. In most cases, mas taas si transverse axis, but there are also cases wherein si conjugate axis na ang mas taas og length compared sa transverse axis. Okay, I hope that clears my point. That clears the idea already. Alright, so we have the vertices are 2, 0, and negative 2, 0. Of course, klaro kaayo ang atong x squared, 0 yun na ang tapad. And ang atong vertex A yun na permanente. Vertex is A. So, unsa man si A mo ng 2. Of course, duha man sila, negative ang usa. And we also have to find our focus, which is denoted as C. So, atong gamiton is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So, substitute everything. So, that will be 4 plus 16. That is 20. And C is square root of 20. Do not forget, dapat C lang yun na siya. Kaya di na nimo mag-graph kung C squared pa na siya. And then, simplify further, that will be 2 square root of 5. And for purposes of the graphing and the plotting, transform this into decimal point. And that will become 4.47. Okay? This is for purposes of graphing alone. Ipag-graph na siya. And then, so the coordinates of our focus, two focus are 2 square root of 5 and 0 and negative 2 square root of 5 and 0. Pwede rag inanion pag-label, pwede ra po ang katong decimal form ani. Round off your answer up to 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places or up to the hundredths term. Okay, the asymptotes are 2 over 1. Nga naman, because of the drawing. The drawing, this is the opening of the hyperbola is left and also naa sa right, left and right. So mo na siyang A over B x. Okay, so I have the picture. Alright, so masimplify pa ni ma'am? Yes, of course. 2 over 1 is 2, so pwede rin na siya y equals 2 over x and y equals negative 2 over x. Clear na ba ang pangutana? Coordinates of the vertices? Check. This one. Coordinates of our foci? Di ara. So, mo nang kinahanglan na agad tayo sentence form. No? The coordinates of the foci are. Right? We also have the lengths of our transverse and the conjugate axis. Kani siya? So, for emphasis, you have to put units. Okay? Para safe kitang tanan, butangan na itong units. Units. Nga naman, ma'am, because everything has equivalent labels. No? Since wala man ta kahibaw kung unsa gayud ang gigamit nga unit din hiya, like di mo kaingon nga centimeter, meter, something. So, to be general, no, we'll use the units term. Okay, so how do I graph, ma'am? Ay hyperbola. Kung saan mo na ipag-graph, ma'am? First of all, you have to start with the center. Pangitawan sa nimo ang center. Kaya mo man siya ang basic. Basis nimo, reference point, starting point. Asa man ko magsugad, ma'am? Okay, magsugod ko pag-plot sa center. Of course, ang center na din hindapita. Diri nga part, di maklaro ang yellow. So, this one. And then, after that, kung makalocate na ka sa center, mukount na ka og 2 units. Okay? 2 units ko, no? Horizontal, no? Diba si vertex, mag-uban na sila sa atong focus. Okay? So, si vertex, si center, si vertex, o si foci, mag-uban gina sila sa ato ang mo ni siya atong transverse axis now. Alright? So, mao ni siya atong center. Kana. Mo na to center. Yang atong vertex pod, mao ni siya 2 units away from the center. So, from the center, you count 2 units. 1, 2. Klaro kaayo. Dili ka man ka 1, 2. Di naman sila same line. Okay? Di sila same line sa ato ang vertex ug sa atong focus. So, di pwede ang focus na diri. Always magina siya nasa sulod sa ato ang conic section or sa ato ang hyperbola. So, meaning to say, na-adyo diri si vertex 1 o si vertex 2. 2 units. Bikang 1, 2. 1, 2. So, pangitaon nimong coordinates, ana. Next, ngadto na po ka sa imuhang conjugate axis from the center. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is 8 units. Okay? Mga nung duha ra man na, ma'am. Of course, di ba? 1, 2 nya, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 units na sila tanan. Kani po, 8 units na sila tanan. Okay? So, tag 4 lang kay B raman. Dili man 2B ang ipangayo. Okay? No, B is just equal to 4. So, ang atong buhaton is, mukha kag 4 units padong sa ibabaw. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, we have that one, and we also have this one. Alright? So, after that, imo na dayon ang i-connect, no? I-connect din mo ang ato ang magpurma din ka din o kanang broken lines, no? Ang imong conjugate axis, imo ang imong broken lines, as well as ang imuhang mga tawag transverse of vertical axis, and then imo na siyang i-connect, mo na siya second step, no? I-locate ang first step, i-locate ang center, si A, si B ug si A ug si B, si A ug si B lang sa, and then after that you connect A and B. Pwede ra broken lines si diri, imo na siya i-connect until makaporma ka og sa tawag ani auxiliary rectangle. After ana, imo din ng agian og diagonals. No? Mao ni siyang imong asymptotes. Alright? So, imo din na siyang labelan. Okay? So, ang imong i-label ani, kani nga line, kani, sorry. So, you have decreasing man so kani ang negative. So, ako gini siya i-check everyone. So, kani siya ang decreasing, mo ni ang label. So, sa increasing pod, left to right, that is kani pod. Okay? So, pwede rin mo itapad. No? Itapad lang nimo pag label. Next, the coordinates must be 2, 0. So, naibutangan nimo din 2, 0. Sa pikas pod, negative 2, 0. Okay. Another, we have ato ang focus. So, asa man si focus? That is 2 squared of 5 units away from the center. So, gikan sa center, mag-count ka og 4.47. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, naa din nga part niya 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.47. Hapit na mo 4.5. So, naa din nga part. See, our focus is always found inside our conic section. Okay. So, atong center, na dinhi. So, ato ang vertex kay naa diri. Pwede na po ay nanaan mo pang label. Vertex 1, nala pa diri si vertex 2. Of course, putangan na nimo coordinates. Okay? 2, 0, negative 2, 0. Okay? Again, I hope naka-follow. Ang atong focus pod kani siya nga label, ibutang nimo dinhi. Okay, this one must be written here. Di na ako i-emphasize kaya di na masigo. And, kaning sa B, okay nang wala. Okay, ang importante lang, si center na si 0, 0, na si focus, na si vertex, o na ang ato ang asymptotes. So, for the length of our lattice rectum, of course, that's 2b squared over a. So, imo na siyang isulat para makaibaw ka unsay kalapdon aning imuhang hyperbola. Alright? So, kinahanglan, wais kita. Alright, ngano ganing opening? Balikon ako. Ngano ganing, ma'am? Ang opening niya, ma'am, kay nasa left o nasa right niya, horizontal siya, ma'am. Kay, ang nag-una nato is x squared o niya, positive siya. Kung kinsay mag-una, before sa ato ang minus sign, kung x ang mag-una, of course, is opening right and left. For example, nabaliktad, y squared over 16 minus x squared over 4. So, meaning to say, y squared, positive man atong y squared over 16, meaning to say, opening up and down. So, ang clue diri sa hyperbola is, kung kinsay ka una, x squared ba or y squared. Alright? So, I hope everything is clear na. Again, you put arrowheads. Okay? Actually, nani siya arrowheads. No? Pero kasagaran sa mga drawing is, wala na yung arrowheads. Kailan mo ng putlon. No? Kaya taas magod kaayo ni. Extending infinitely yun ni siya. Okay? So, sa graph, di na nato ma-picture pag maayo. Okay? Imagine, it extends infinitely. So, for purposes of this, tapat na siya arrowheads. Okay. Next, we also have our second problem. We have y squared over 25 minus x squared over 9. Of course, nag-una man atong y squared, niya positive siya, ang 25. So, ang atong orientation is opening upward and downward. So, ang atong A, of course, mag-una yun permanente si A. A is 5, B is 3. Transverse axis is 2A, that's 10. Next, 2B is 6. So, i-multiply rin na mo. And the vertices, 0, 5, 0, negative 5, and then C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So, A times A, that's 5 times 5, 25, and 3 times 3 is 9. So, na ako dili nga area. Okay? Area. And then 25 plus 9, that is 34. Kaning area. Then C equals square root of 34. So the coordinates are 0 and square root of 34 and 0 and negative square root of 34. Again, for purposes of plotting, you have to transform this into a decimal point, into decimal form rather, and then put a, how shall I call this one? Round it off to the nearest hundredths or up to 2 decimal places. The equation of the asymptotes, of course, mag-una na ato ang, that would be A over B. Okay? Kanina, B over A man to. Karon, A over B na po. Okay? So, again, first step is to locate the center. Center ang una. Next, to locate your A. Si A is 5 man. Okay, kaya ba man ka nga opening upward and downward. So, meaning to say, ang akong movement is naa sa y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kana nga area. And then, kanipod nga area. Next, di mo dyan na atbang maginan sila always sa conjugate axis. So, that will be 3, 0. So, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Next, after finding the center, the A, and the B, you have to make a rectangle, auxiliary rectangle, and then connect them together. And then next to that is your foci. Locate si foci. Square root of 34. Of course, the square root of 34 na siya somewhere here inside the hyperbola. So, say for example, na din ha, napa din ni ang usa. Alright, dire. Instance lang niya, kaya di man kayo makita din niya, no? So, I'm just giving you a guide. So, square root of 34 is 5 point something. 5.83. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.83. Okay. Okay, I'll change this one. So, let's be precise. Kaya mo ba kinahanglan ni ma'am. Alright. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.83. So, hapit na siya maabot sa 6. Nang usap po, 1 na din nilapita. Okay. So, butangan na natog label. This will be your f sub 1, f sub 2, v sub 1, v sub 2. Of course, with your coordinates. Itapad na sila. Din ha. Now, v sub 1 is 0, 5. Ilan na ba? 0, 5, and 0, negative 5. Kana siya. Always apil ang nasa focus. Kana siya. Hanapita, kani, ibutang ninyo din he. Okay, sige ako ipakita ha. So, maana ka din ha. So, we have 0 and square root of 34. Of course, kung asa ang positive, ato na nabita ang positive nga. Coordinate 0 and negative square root of 34. So, malaki pasagot. And of course, the center. The center is at 0, 0. Tama na yung center din ha. Okay? And you also have your asymptotes. So, si asymptotes ka na from left to right na decreasing, mo ni ang negative. So, that will become y equals negative 5/3 x. Yang usap po is kani y equals 5/3 x. Okay, again, put arrowheads in all your drawings. Okay, okay, next, let's talk about standard form of the hyperbola with center at HK. Okay, so center at HK, dili na siya 0, 0. Of course, you have the partner ni y is k, the partner of x is h. Okay, again, kung positive, kung mag-una si y squared, positive siyang aspect, Mag-una siya before the minus sign, meaning to say it's opening upward or downward na nakay clue. Okay? Now, ang center, HK. Pero mag-una si H kaysa ni K. Okay? HK. Dili na siya 0, 0. Naisbog na siya. Okay? Transverse axis is parallel to the y-axis. The transverse axis is parallel to the y-axis. Okay. So, nagapoy clue. And the conjugate axis is parallel to the x-axis. And that is 2p. Naaman din eh. So, naadiri si transverse axis. Naadiri si conjugate axis. Okay. So, the slopes, still, pareho ra sila. A over b kung y squared. Kung x squared para nag-una, that's b over a. And the general form of the equation of any conic section is ax squared plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f equals 0. Always yun na nga, equated to 0 ang general form. Ang arrangement, mag-una si x, sunod ni y, sunod x na po, sunod y, sunod constant. Okay. So, let's have standard form is center at HK. Nga ang iyang transverse axis horizontal. So, opening left and opening right. Okay, so, mauna siya ang imong equation. Again, kung mag-una ang x squared, positive siya before the minus sign, then your drawing is, your hyperbola will open rightward and left sa left o sa right. Okay, parallel siya sa ato ang x-axis, 2a gyapon and 2b gyapon atong conjugate axis, and the slopes are b over a and negative b over a. Okay, let's move on to our next example, writing the equation in general form. So we have here, the given is the quantity of y minus 2 squared over 25 minus the quantity of x minus 3 squared over 9 equals 1. So, yun sa man eh. So, the butterfly method, right? So, ganun siya, multiplied by 9. So, that is 9 times this quantity minus, of course, minus man ang sign sa center, copy, 25 times this part only. And then, kanina sa 25 times 9 is 225. So, muna na inyong mabutang nga constant, dili na 1. Next to that, you have to simplify by expanding this one. So, muna siyang y squared minus 4y plus 4 and x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 6x plus 9 equals 225. And then distribute 9 to this term, which will result to 9y squared minus 36y plus 36. Of course, it distributes to 25 pa do ni x squared minus 6x plus 9. So, mo ni ang result tanan. Okay? And then, you have to combine like terms. Okay? Diba ang general equation kay mag-una gid ang x. Right? So, ang placement ba? Kay alphabetical managod lang gina look after, gina consider. Sorry. So, you have x squared, y squared, 150x minus 36y. Then, combine 36 and 225. That's negative 144. General man. General. So, dapat equated to 0. Okay? So, the general form of the equation is negative 25x plus 9y squared minus 150x minus 36y plus 36 equals 0. Okay. Again, pwede rin siya multiplyan o negative 1. But make it sure that this, while doing that, mubalik ra gyapon ko sa original equation. Okay? So, muna siya ang, pwede na ni-ani ang answer. As long as ang pauna is, ang nag-una is ang exponent, highest exponent, na ang alphabetical placement, x, y, and then the constant equals 0. Where, okay, a value of a is negative 25, C is 9, D is negative 150, E is negative 36, and F is 36. Okay, next. Let's go to our next example. Write the equation of the hyperbola with center at 2, negative 3. One of the vertex is at 6, negative 3, and the coordinates of one focus is at negative 3 and 3. Clue. How do you solve this? You have to plot everything. Right, so mag-plotting ka. So, oops. Sorry. Let's do it again. Okay, much better. So the center is at 2, negative 3. 1, 2, 3. So somewhere here, it's just another color. So 2, negative 3. The vertex is at 6, negative 3. So 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, negative 3. The vertex is at this one. So batangan ng V. And then you also have your center. Label. And then your focus is at negative 3 and negative 3. Negative 3 and negative 3. So 1, 2, 3. Padong negative 3. Negative 3 and negative 3. So nadinhi ang imuhang focus. Ano mo focus? So we all know that it's correct ang given because they lie on the same line. Collinear sila, no? So, meaning to say, center, vertex, niya, ato ang focus. So, asa ka na siya opening? This is opening, asa man? Opening upward, downward, left, right, or left. Okay, so makaingon ta nga this is opening. Ano yung vertex pa na siya? Okay. Ano to ang? So, natin hi somewhere ang ito ang rectangular. Tingnan na. Dapat din mo sa okay, rough sketch. Alright. So, let's try to check if our drawing is correct. Okay, self-check. Okay, let's erase first. Okay. So, you have the center is at 2, negative 3. So, H is 2 and K is negative 3. So, the distance from the center to the vertex is 4 units. Okay, klaro kaayo, no? 4 units. So, A is equal to 4. Then, our C is 5 units. Center to focus. Using the Pythagorean theorem, you have B squared equals C squared minus A squared. So, that will be 25 minus 16, and that will be 9. Square root of 9 is positive negative 3. Of course, muna ha, o solution. Always, you know, positive and negative 3 basta square root. Next, since okay, ang atong opening is nasa left, sakto ta opening sa left. So, ang atong equation is the quantity of x minus h squared all over a squared minus the quantity of y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. Then, plug in all the given information. So, you have y minus 2. Again, ma-change ang sign, ha? Ma-change ang sign. Kung ato na ibutang sa ito ang equation, isod na nato siya sa parenthesis. Positive 2 becomes negative 2. Negative 3 becomes positive 3. Because of this equation, minus and minus 2. And this is minus 3. Okay. Wala na siya. Alright, then simplify. 4 squared down yung libutang. That will be 16 and this will be 9. Okay, and then in standard form, wala na siya. Kaning first na nasa right, and then nasa crisscross, no? So, una and multiply, and then the other one, you always copy the sign of the middle, sign of the operation, and then that will be equal to 1. Then expand. So after expanding, you have to distribute. After distributing, you have to combine like terms, arrange from highest to lowest, starting with x terms. X, then y, then the constant. And simplify. So the standard equation is this one, x squared, x minus 2 squared over 16 minus y plus 3 squared over 9 equals 1. And the general equation is 9x squared minus 16y squared minus 36x minus 96y minus 216 equals 0. Again, write the equation. Wala man nakaspecify. So, naatay general form, naatay standard form. At least you'll know how to solve this one. Okay, so tips, you have to be very, very careful in distributing, expanding, combining like terms, simplifying. Okay, once masimplify nyo diri, say for example, this becomes positive 144. Then this will not be the correct answer. So, sa may technique ma'am, kung naano kay general form, pwede na po nimo i-transform into standard form. Kung makuha ganin nimo nga standard form, meaning to say your general form is already correct. So, self-check din pag may time. Okay, next, state the coordinates of the vertices and the foci, transverse, conjugate axis, and equations of the asymptotes. We're given a general equation of the hyperbola. So, sa may buhaton, we have to, you have to apply the completing the square method. So, first step is you have to, what? You have to combine like terms. 4x squared plus 32x plus negative 9y squared plus 18y plus 91 equals 0. Next to that, you have to factor out common terms. Ay may factor. Say common sa 4x squared o sa 32x. Of course, ang common nila, ang coefficient lang atong basihan, no? Ang number. Common ni 4 o ni 32. Greatest common factor. That will be 4. So, kung ato ipagawa si 4, ang mahibili na lang inside the parenthesis will be x squared. Okay? Yeah, 32 man na din ha, gawas ang 4. So, 4 times 8x, that's 32x. Okay? Self-check ta ha, dapat kung diunsa nimo siya pag factor out, kinahanglan ini-distribute nimo, mo result siya sa previous step. Kung dili ka siya masakto, meaning to say, sayo pang imong pagka-factor. Most especially with the sign. Wala problema pag plus kay wala may ma-change. Pero kung mag-minus, diya na ta mag-take it. Okay, next. Same process. Common term sa ito ang negative 9y squared and 18y na common coefficient, that would be negative 9. So, di pagawas niya ang negative 9. Kaya positive times negative, that's negative man po. So, negative 9 times y squared. Positive man din yung dapita. So, saan man niya? Negative ng gawas. 18 divided by negative 9, that's negative 2y. And then, you subtract 91 from both sides mo nang naantay negative 91. Kuha, same lang siya. Ma-process only that naatay coefficient nga more than 1. Okay, wala ang napuno sa step. Next, nga 16 man eh. Again, so that will be the middle term must be divided into 2. 8 divided by 2, that's 4. 4 squared, or 4 times 4 is 16. So that is the third term. Another, we also have this one. Negative 2 divided by 2. That's negative 1. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. Right? So, manang 1 ang nakabutang din ha. Alright, kaya sa pagkuha, 8 divided by 2, that's 4. 4 times 4, or 4 squared equals 16. 4 squared, dili 4 times 2, kung dili 4 squared. 4 times 4, 16. Next, negative 2 divided by 2, that's negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1, that's positive 1. Okay, next. Next to that, you have to determine kung pila ka akong i-add dinhing dapita. Okay, so 16 of 1 na bakaha or sa bakaha jud. So we have here plus 64. Diyan sa pakuang 64. 4 times 16. Ma'am, nganong imo mang gi-multiplyan og 4? Ma'am, of course, this is part of the terms, original terms, correct? Kani? Ato ra biya gi-factor out. So ay kung ingna, ikaw mag-factor out imo siya ibilin. No. So kung unsay original, ato gyud siya apilon. Kung naapay number nga naa dinhi sa gawas, or coefficient, you have to multiply it with the constant term. Kaya katong sa una, 1 raman to, 1 times ka na. So, more na to answer. Pero kani, ma-change naman kaya this is not 1 but this is 4. So, 4 times 16, it's 64. And then, we also have 9. Right? You have negative 9 times 1. Okay? Then, combine like terms. So you have, what's the answer din here? That's 8x. So divided by 2, that's 4. Copy the sign of the middle term. And then you also have this one. Copy the sign of the middle term. That is negative 1. So negative 91 plus 64. That will be pila naman, tanan. So that would be negative 94. Sorry, that would be plus 64. Okay, negative 91 plus 64 minus 9. Okay, correction for this part. So this will be minus, ay sorry, di makita. Minus 9 na din eh. Sipyat ko din eh, ha? Minus 9. Okay, kay negative 9 times 1, that's negative 9. Sipyat akong sign. Okay, negative 91 plus 64 minus 9, that's negative 36. And next step is you have to divide everything by negative 36. Nga naman, kaya ang standard form equated to 1. Basta magsugod ta sa ellipse o sa hyperbola para pareho na sila. 36 niyang sa negative 36 po. Alright. Panawang answer. Diba? So, divide both sides by negative 36 para mahimo siyang 1. Okay. So, of course, na yung magpabilin nga negative. So, negative kana. And this one. Pwede rasad in maibali. Okay, kay kung ba, difference ba ya? So, di pwede inani. Difference ba ya? The sum of the distance from the two fixed points has a constant difference. So, manang minus. Pwede ragi swapping ka niya. Okay, to check if this is correct, if your answer is correct, then you have to transform the standard form into the general form. If, say for example, sakto ni, ang standard form ni mo padung sa imuhang general form, then meaning to say that your answer is already correct. Okay. So, padung na ta sa graphing. Okay, so I'll just be showing to you the answer. As we have already discussed this one. Again, this is centered at HK already. Okay, combination na niya. So, we have, again, be careful. Ha? X, H. So, H. Dili ka ni ang ato ang H. Okay? Tapad ni X by H. Mo na ato ang coordinate. Negative 4 and positive 1. So, awong A is 2. Of course, kung may nag-una, A is 2, B is 3, and then units is 4 and 6. Coordinates of vertices, mao ni, and our foci, maupod ni. Again, be careful. And you can check your printed modules for more infos ani nganong naingon ani ni siya. Okay? And of course, in your asymptotes, mapunan din na siya H o K. Lahi naman ang ato ang center. Right? Kung centered 0, 0, mo itong extra to. Pero centered at 4 and 1, mo 4 and 1. Okay? So this will be your drawing. Opening, upward, and downward. So you have to be careful in labeling. So you have your center din here, vertex din here, focus din here. Same is true with the other one. Okay, drawing apart. So in lampshades, kina concept anang sun. Di na kayo maklaro kay nagtutok mo sa sun, sakit man sa mata, pero naa na siya hyperbolic design. Kana siya nga part. Use your imagination. The butterfly, right? That one. Kasi have the hourglass and your nose. So sana all matangos ang ilong. Okay, that would be all. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe my YouTube channel. I hope this video has helped you in some way. This is Miss Ana Farsikabala saying persistence is the key to success. More practice, and more practice. Never give up. Thank you, and God bless us all. Bye!